Thank you. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Adi. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be right now. It's always a real pleasure and an honor to be here. Start with a melody. Yai dai da dai, yai dai da dai, ya dai 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 dai, yai dai da dai, yai dai da dai, ya dai dai da dai 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 dai. Yai dai da dai da dai, yai dai da dai da dai, yai dai da dai dai da dai 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 dai. When I prepared my teaching for today, I realized that I used that melody in the last teaching that I brought between Tisha B'Av and Elul, and it felt still appropriate, and we'll sing it together later. Return again. And on this eve of Yom Kippur, or the morning of the eve of Yom Kippur, it felt appropriate to bring that in today. Adi, might I ask you to screen share? Thank you. So we are in this liminal space between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, these Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, these 10 days of return. And we're also in the very beginning of a Shemitah cycle. I know that there's been a lot of conversation about the Shemitah year every 7 years. And for those who are not familiar, the Shemitah year is a year of rest, and it's a year of release. It's a year of rest for the land, and it's a year of release of debts and of a creation of economic equilibrium. So I wanted to work with both of these concepts today because there's a radical overlap in the text in the way both the Shemitah year and Yom Kippur are designated. So if we read in Leviticus chapter 25, we read about the Shemitah year. Uvashana hashvi'it, Shabbat Shabbaton yeh la'aretz, Shabbat l'Adonai, Sadcha lo tizra, v'chamecha lo tizmor. And in the 7th year, the land shall have, and the bold is mine, a Sabbath of complete rest. A Sabbath of Havaya, this is a way of translating Yud He Vav He, which I understand as presence and being. You shall not sow your field or plant your vineyard. So a year of rest, a Sabbath of complete rest for the land. And on Yom Kippur we read, B'chodesh hashvi'i ba'asor lachodesh, Shabbat Shabbaton hi lachem, chukat olam. Now I see that I didn't bold in the Hebrew here, but we have the same term, Shabbat Shabbaton, in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, which we know of as Yom Kippur. It shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for you. It is a law for all time. So I was thinking about Shemitah and Yom Kippur and all of the things that we associate with Yom Kippur. We may associate it with guilt. We may associate it with repentance. I love the word atonement being broken up into at-one-ment. Do we stop to think that this is a day of a Sabbath of complete rest? A Sabbath of complete rest. And what might that look like? What might that feel like? My colleague, Rabbi Lester Bronstein, was looking at this term, Shabbat Shabbaton, and he called it the inner Shabbat, or the essential Shabbat, even the root Shabbat, the internal Shabbat. If we, which we are humans created from the earth, We are Adam, the human, created from the Adamah, from the earth. Then the year of the land resting is a year of us resting. And we move to the day that we acknowledge as the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, and it is also a Sabbath of complete rest. So what I would like for us to breathe in today's meditation is the concept of rest of the soul, the inner Sabbath, the inner Shabbat. What is the essential Shabbat? And the root Shabbat, perhaps linking us back to this connection with Shemitah, with the earth, the root of all life. Let's take a breath. And find your center on the cushion, on the chair, on the surface if you're lying in a reclining position. And allow your eyes to soften, or if it's comfortable, to close. And I invite you to think of your spine, the base of your spine, deep in the bottom of your pelvis, as a root that brings you close to the ground, close to the spirit that comes up through the earth. And if you're sitting, I invite you to extend that same idea through your feet, feeling your feet resting comfortably on the ground, feeling them root deep down, and feeling the earth rise up to hold you. If you're reclining, I invite you to allow your whole physical being to lie back and rest in the cradle of the ground, of the earth that supports you. If it's comfortable, I invite you to bring your attention back to your breath. Simply noticing each in-breath and each out-breath. And seeing if you can allow that connection to the root, to the ground, to the deep peace, the deep Sabbath of the earth, to enter into you from below. If you prefer to focus your attention elsewhere, I invite you perhaps to focus on a beam of light around the third eye, your forehead, or maybe out in front of you a few feet. A beam of light that holds healing in it, and that brings you also to a state of Shabbat, Shabbaton, complete rest. And let us take in energy with our awareness either on the breath or on the light. With our attention on the concept Shabbat, Shabbaton, a Sabbath of complete rest. What inside you wants to rest? What inside you craves release? A release that may be very uncomfortable in these stressful times. And yet underneath it is the possibility of complete rest. The inner Sabbath. The essential Sabbath. The root Sabbath. We'll take some quiet time now in our meditations. And I'll close with a bell. we make our way back to our shared space. And Adi, if I might ask you to bring up the screen share again. Thank you. These words may be familiar to us. They're common to sing at this season. And this year, they have, at least for me, an added value of this connection to the land of your soul. The liturgy in the high holidays, Adam Yesodo, our origin is dust, earth, soil, and we go back to the soil. And this is in the construct of life and death. And here, I invite us to see it in the construct of this is where we get refueled. It's where we leave go. The earth can hold us, and where we get refueled. And in our process, we refuel the planet. So please feel free to join me in your space. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. My blessings for a beautiful sealing for good this year for us all, for a healing of our world and our planet, people, our creatures, for all goodness.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Robin.
You're welcome.
Let's stay with that, folks, and bring that awareness into the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. This is a communal practice for all of us, whether you're reciting the words or not. For those who are not reciting the words as mourners or those observing the art site, we're here just to be a witness, just to practice chesed and to extend loving kindness and support to those who are. Invite those of you who are in mourning, if you have a yard site, if you're carrying any grief, to share the name or names of those who you're honoring in the chat box. Just a reminder that during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, there's an additional La'ela in the middle paragraph of the Kaddish. Invite you to share that. And I invite you to join me in rising in body, mind, spirit to recite the words of Kaddish. Yit Gadol, Nitadash, Shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Yama, Divra, Hivute, Yablik, Malkute. V'chayechon, V'yamechon, V'chayed, Beit Yisrael, V'agalah, Zman Karif, Yemru, Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba, Barach, Olam, V'nei Amaya. Yit Barak, Yishtabach, Yitpa'ar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shmei Dikricha, B'richu. La'ela ula'ela, kol birchata v'shivata, tushbetata v'nechamata, ta'amiran ba'ama.
Shlama Rabba Min
Amen.
B'chaim Aleinu
Shlama
V'Kol
Rabba
Israel.
min shamayim,
V'imru Amen.
v'chayim aleinu
Oseh
v'al
Shalom
Yisrael,
B'Mramav. Uyaseh
v'imru
Shalom.
amen.
Amen.
Aleinu V'Kol
Oseh
Israel.
shalom
V'imru
b'mramav,
Amen.
uyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel.
Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for being with us again today on this journey. And thanks, of course, to our teacher, Rabbi Robin Damsky of Limitless Judaism. You're all invited to stay on for a few minutes to explore little bit more of the teaching today, questions you might have, or observations or reflections on the practice, and how we might bring that into the rest of our day and into our lives. Of course, we want to thank Martha Gunsberg and Edward Stein for dedicating our practice today in loving memory of their brother, Dr. Paul Stein, on the occasion of the 17th yard site. May his memory be a blessing. Thanks, of course, always to Adi Stein for holding the text space so beautifully, and thanks also to Adi for debuting as guest host yesterday and doing a beautiful job from all I can gather. And really always ever grateful to you, Adi, for what you do to make this possible. And just a reminder that we will be sitting tomorrow. Rabbi Jonathan Slater will be leading us. And on Friday, we welcome back Rabbi Marcelo Bronstein leading us. And next week, we will be meeting for practice on Monday. There'll be yoga on Monday. There'll be meditation on Monday. That's Erev Sukkot, but we will not be live the first 2 days of Sukkot, next Tuesday or Wednesday. Really, I don't know. It's very hard to believe it's Sukkot. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, no live sets, but we will be back on Thursday and Friday. So next week we will have meditation Monday, Thursday, and Friday. And we hope to sit into Shabbaton, into Yom Kippur together with you with Rabbi Jonathan Slater at our usual time, 12:30 Eastern tomorrow. So if you are staying on, and if you have a question you'd like to put to Rabbi Robin Damsky, please put it in the chat box. And if you can, preface it by putting question in caps, and always a little bit easier for me to spot the questions in that case. Robin, actually, if I just want to lead off with a question, I really just so appreciated your connection of Shemitah and the language of Shabbat Shabbaton and Shabbat Shabbaton for Yom Kippur, and this great embodied practice of sitting with awareness that we are of the earth, which is, I think during Elul, we talked a lot about part of the awareness, that the Shemitah practice is meant to inculcate an awareness that A, the earth doesn't belong to us, and B, we are of the earth, and everything that we do in relationship to the planet directly affects us, and also that everything that we do with other human beings directly affects the planet, right?
Right.
So I just want to just start with a compliment of sitting with just the simple practice of imagining the roots extending from our feet down into the ground as a visceral reminder of, oh yeah. And then I'll quickly share my screen here because you cited this at the end. This is from Unatana Tokef, which various people have referred to, and you have referred to this really powerful, beautiful passage in the Machzor, Adam Yesodo Me'afar V'Sofo La'afar. We come from dust. We come from the earth, and we return to the earth. And then all these analogies, right, that we're part of, our lives and ourselves are like all these different aspects of the natural world, which I know is your sweet spot in your own practice and teaching. So I guess there's not a question there. It's just like wanted to underscore the beauty of that and the power that held for me. Okay, so I'm going to look through. Can you offer thoughts on, after identifying what inside me craves release and what inside me wants rest, how to initiate this transformation? After identifying what inside me craves release and what inside me wants rest, how to initiate the transformation?
Thanks for the question, Laura. It's a good one. I mentioned during the meditation for those who are reclining to allow themselves to feel held. And I want to really clearly state that we can be in any position and experience ourselves as being held. We could experience like a falling back, literally, into the arms of God if we're sitting, or simply just allow ourselves to see. I think of the talit, for example. When I put on my talit, I think that I'm enrobing myself in God's protection. That's how I visualize that. So it's the same kind of idea as allowing ourselves to be held in whatever way speaks to you, so that you can moan and cry and laugh and sing and be uncertain. And that is one tool to allowing what needs to be expressed or what's craving release to come out, that we have that safety to let it out. And my personal experience is that once I do that, I need to feel safe to do that. And once I do that, all of a sudden, new life rushes in. Light, heart, relief, release, pleasure. And we've already created the transformation. By simply allowing ourselves to be where we are, we engage the process of transformation. One of the things we know so closely that we work with all the time in meditation is impermanence. That nothing is forever. The breath we all just breathed last is gone. And so even though we hold on tightly to whatever it is that frightens us or captures us or seizes us, as soon as we allow ourselves to just take a moment and rest, really complete rest, and imagine ourselves being held, or being held by the earth, if that's a more powerful image for you, immediately the shift begins. And in my experience, I have to go back and go back and go back and go back until eventually what was a shift for a moment begins to be a shift that becomes more of a presence or a way of my life. Is that helpful?
I I hope it would be. I think for me it is. It relates to a question, and John Berman is here raising a question. John, just on behalf of all of us, want to extend condolences and love and support to you on the loss of Robin, and may her memory be a great blessing, and may you be comforted among all those who mourn here and everywhere. About how this relates to the grieving process. You kind of alluded to that, Robin. I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah. And John and I have been communicating a little bit one-on-one. I have his wife's name, Robin. John, there's no easy way to make it through grief. The loss of a loved one, especially someone who's that precious to us, is a death. It is a death not only of their physical body, but it's a death in us. And my invitation is to allow yourself to feel it as fully as possible. And give yourself permission to say enough and come back to it at the next moment when it feels like you need to come back to it. Because sometimes the grief is so deep that it exhausts us. And we just have to say, that's enough for right now. Yeah. Seek out ways to be held spiritually by people you love, who you're safe being close to in this COVID crazy time. And this might be the hardest piece to trust. And my heart is with you, as I wrote to you.
Thank you for that, Robin.
Yeah.
That's your really wise counsel there. I think brought up to my mind, that famous sermon by Rabbi Milton Steinberg, to hold with open arms, which we cited during the Shofar project. he who died at a young age and who wrote a famous sermon after suffering a near fatal heart attack, and spoke about like what you just described, this process. How do we holding the paradox of holding and letting go at the same time. And he just called for it different moments, and you just like I think it was a very beautiful idea about like discerning when to when it feels possible to let go, and also to honor the instinct to hold, right? And it's certainly not a linear process at all. And thanks, Laura, for mentioning that. Robin, I know, been part of many IJS circles of practice, and very to loss, communal loss, and we're all with you in that as well. All right, so the question here: acknowledging that your practice at earth-based, do you have any cherished embodied land-based practices connected to this time to rest, release, compassion, kindness? Maybe you can take us into Sukkot here too, Robin. I think you let us during Sukkot. I think
there are a couple of there's a bunch of questions here.
Oh,
See if I can maybe tie them together.
I'm behind.
That's okay. I hear the moaning and the grief and the anger of our planet at the indignities and damage. Is resting with our roots deeply in the land also inclusive of allowing connection with these feelings? Why not? Because if we are going to open ourselves to connection of any kind, we open ourselves to all that is. And if we do that, if we open our hearts, we can't open our hearts to just a little bit, right? We open our hearts and things flood in that are beautiful, and things flood in that are hurtful and that are painful and that are angering. And I think that the only way to heal is to allow ourselves to receive those feelings as well. And again, kind of a theme here is that as we sit with the earth, as we sit with ourselves, and we allow all of that to come in, we come to a place, or I have come to a place of song. And it may just be a note. It may be something completely different. And that is a healing for what has come in, and a healing that I am sending out to kind of bridge the pain and the beauty. So perhaps sounding is one of the tools that might help us to deal with the frustration and the upset and the brokenness. A cherished embodied land-based practice. There are so many. And it's interesting because we're in a period of time where we're in Israel, we don't plant in the ground. And some people outside of the land of Israel have adopted that same practice, whereas others will intentionally support the earth in regenerating by maybe planting things like vetch and other legumes that nourish the soil, or maybe bring mushroom compost to remediate places on the earth which are toxic. There are many possibilities here, and some of this I'll be exploring throughout this year through Limitless Judaism. So please, the way to communicate with me is at the bottom of the text sheet. Please feel free to connect with me. And there was another question that you expressed, Mark, acknowledging the practice of earth-based. Do you have a chart? You're right. Compassion, kindness. What ways are there to cultivate an interplay between the spirit of the earth and the returning to the land of our soul and our inner Shabbat?
Mm-hmm.
If you are in a place where you can be outside, even in a small capacity, the cities still have live places. I encourage us all to spend as much time as possible connecting with nature. And if that means all we can do is open a window, then let's let in the air. If we can get our feet in the ground, if we can sit on the earth, if we can lie on the ground, all of these are regenerative practices. And simply bringing these kavanot, these intentions, to that experience. I'm going to sit and connect with my inner Sabbath. I'm going to connect with my intention to bring Sabbath to this planet. And actually, the way that you do that might ultimately wind up being through social justice, to bring rest through action, right? The interesting dichotomies that that are part of our world.
Robin, I think you offered, we're of course Erev Yom Kippur, and I think you just for me at least, you offered this wonderful suggestion for practice over Yom Kippur of sitting in that Shabbaton.
Right.
So I wanted to lift that up as a suggestion for people wherever you are, whether you are associated with a community or not, that just to take some time and to engage in this practice during Yom Kippur is extremely powerful. And the other part is, in the language in the Torah about Shemitah, it's described as a Shemitah Ladonai. It's a Shemitah for Yetei Vavhe.
Right.
Right. It's got, it's a release for the land. It's a release for the people who work the land, and it's a release for God that brings it all together, which, led so beautifully into the song, the closing song. And by the way, good. Okay. Thanks for putting your contact info in there.
Yeah.
That all are happening at the same time. The land of our soul, the land, ourselves, our bodies, and our soul. And it's all, and all are one at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that right there, that is limitless Judaism. It is body, spirit, earth, and the interconnection of all three, and how closely tied our well-being is with the well-being of the planet, and that the interplay is our spiritual connection. The thread is our spiritual connection. So the website, which has been posted a couple of times, is in process. It is up. It's new, and in the coming weeks, it will continue to become more solidified and more complete. But you're welcome to at least take a look over there. And thank you, Mark, for putting that in the chat box. And feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to connect.
Thank you, Robin. As always, you're a very important and wonderful resource, especially in the Shemitah year. Always grateful to get to practice and learn with and from you. So thanks so much. Great, a real treat. And this is days of turning to sit with you. And thank you for leading us into Yom Kippur in that way so beautifully. And thanks to Martha and Edward for sponsoring in memory of Paul Stein, Zichrono Livracha. Thanks, Adi Stein, most of all to all of you. Thanks for being here, for being present. Invited to join us to sit into that Shabbaton tomorrow with Rabbi Jonathan Slater by JS, and on Friday, led by Marcelo Bronstein, Rabbi Marcelo Bronstein, joining us from Costa Rica, from the rainforest. So not to be missed. Let's sit into the Shabbat in the rainforest in Costa Rica on Friday.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, pretty wonderful. Okay, everyone, be well, and Gemar Chatima Tova, may all be sealed for health and ease and shalom in 5782.